2 years had passed since Anakin Skywalker had stood over the broken body of Darth Sidious in the ancient Sith temple beneath Coruscant's foundations. 2 years since he had proven himself worthy of the title the Emperor had bestowed upon him. Grey Knight, warrior immune to corruption, wielder of powers that transcended the artificial boundaries between light and dark. In that time, the galaxy had transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible during the chaos of the Clone Wars. The Galactic Alliance had solidified its hold over the former Republic and Separatist territories alike. Systems that had once fought bitter battles against each other now cooperated under the unified military structure the Emperor had established. The enhanced clone legions patrolled trade routes with efficiency that made piracy virtually non-existent. The Crusader Order's Jedi, who had abandoned the old dogma in favor of the Emperor's more pragmatic approach, maintained peace through strength rather than passive meditation. Corruption had been rooted out of the Senate with surgical precision, the Emperor's psychic senses making deception impossible in his presence. And at the heart of it all, Anakin Skywalker had become something of a legend, the first Grey Knight, the Emperor's champion, the warrior who had defeated the last Sith Lord in single combat and emerged without a trace of dark side corruption. Holonet broadcasts featured his silver armor, and the tales of his training spread across cantinas and military academies alike. Young Force sensitives whispered about the possibility of following his path, of learning to use all aspects of their power without falling to darkness. But legends, Anakin had learned, came with expectations. He stood now in the Emperor's throne room on Coruscant, the vast chamber of gold and marble that had replaced the old Senate building's central rotunda. Sunlight streamed through windows that stretched dozens of meters high, casting the space in warm illumination that seemed to emanate from the golden figure seated upon the central throne. The God Emperor of mankind sat in contemplation, his ageless features showing the weight of thoughts that spanned not just this galaxy but memories of another reality entirely. "You summoned me, Master," Anakin said, dropping to one knee in the gesture of respect he had adopted during his training. The silver armor he wore, inscribed with psychic wards and symbols that enhanced his connection to the Force, clinked softly against the marble floor. "Rise, Anakin," the Emperor commanded, his voice carrying the harmonics that made every word resonate in the listener's soul. "We have much to discuss, and I would have you stand as the warrior you have become rather than kneel as a supplicant." Anakin rose smoothly, his enhanced physiology making the movement effortless despite the weight of his armor. At nearly 2 meters tall now, the bone lengthening during his transformation had added significant height. He cut an imposing figure. But before the Emperor, even he felt small. That was simply the nature of being in the presence of a being who had guided humanity for 40 millennia. "The Alliance is stable," the Emperor began, his golden eyes fixing on Anakin with an intensity that would have made lesser beings flinch. "The Sith are destroyed. The Clone Wars are ended. The immediate threats to this civilization have been neutralized. But you know, as I know, that this peace is temporary. The Yuuzhan Vong vanguard was repelled, yes, but the main fleet remains out there, somewhere beyond the galactic rim. They will return, or they will find another path into this galaxy. And there are other threats, civilizations, and dangers in the unknown regions that your Republic never mapped, never prepared for." "You want me to go into the unknown regions?" Anakin stated, understanding dawning. It was not a question. "I want you to lead a crusade into them," the Emperor corrected. "Not merely exploration, but conquest. Establishment of forward bases, defensive positions, early warning systems. I want you to map those territories so thoroughly that nothing can approach this galaxy without our knowledge. I want you to identify potential allies and neutralize potential threats before they can become existential dangers. And I want you to do this at the head of the First Legion, the finest proto-space marines this galaxy has produced." Anakin absorbed this, his enhanced mind processing the implications rapidly. The unknown regions represented vast swathes of space that the Republic had never charted, filled with hyperspace anomalies, uncontacted civilizations, and dangers that had kept even the most adventurous explorers at bay. To lead a military expedition into such territory was not merely dangerous, it was potentially suicidal. But it was also necessary. The Emperor was right. Peace meant nothing if threats could approach undetected. The Yuuzhan Vong had nearly caught the galaxy unprepared once. They could not afford to let that happen again. "How long?" Anakin asked. "As long as it takes. Years, potentially. You will establish a permanent presence in those regions, create supply lines back to Alliance space, and systematically expand our knowledge and control. This is not a mission with a defined endpoint, Anakin. This is the beginning of humanity's expansion into the final frontier of this galaxy." "And Padme? The children?" Anakin's voice carried concern despite his training. Luke and Leia were only 2 years old, growing up in a galaxy far different from what would have been their fate had Sidious succeeded. The thought of leaving them for years. "We'll be safe here, under my protection," the Emperor assured him. "Senator Amidala continues her work, ensuring democratic principles survive within our military structure. Your children are being raised with every advantage, trained from infancy in techniques that will one day make them Grey Knights as well. They will not forget their father, and you will return to them, Anakin. This I promise. But first, you must secure their future by securing the galaxy's borders." It was the argument that would always work on Anakin, framing his sacrifice in terms of protecting those he loved. The Emperor understood him completely, knew exactly which words would resonate with the purpose that had been forged into his very being during those months of brutal training. "When do I leave?" Anakin asked, his decision made. 3 days. Use that time to assemble your command staff, say your farewells, and prepare yourself mentally for what lies ahead. This will be the greatest test of your abilities since you faced Sidious, Anakin. You will be far from my direct guidance, forced to make decisions that will affect thousands of lives with no one to consult but your own judgment. Are you ready for that responsibility? Anakin met the Emperor's golden gaze without flinching. "You trained me for exactly this, Master. I'm ready. We shall see." Dismissed. The military staging grounds on Coruscant's orbital ring buzzed with activity as Anakin's fleet prepared for departure. Dozens of cruisers were being loaded with supplies, weapons, and equipment sufficient for years of independent operation. The vessels themselves had been modified according to the Emperor's specifications: stronger hulls, more efficient engines, weapons systems that incorporated both conventional technology and force-enhanced targeting systems. These were not the standard Republic cruisers that had fought the Clone Wars. These were instruments of conquest, designed to project power into the unknown. But it was the troops that truly set this expedition apart. Anakin walked through the primary hangar of his flagship, the Indomitable Will, observing his soldiers as they conducted final equipment checks. The Proto-Space Marines of the 1st Legion were impressive specimens enhanced through the same processes that had transformed Anakin himself, though to a lesser degree. They stood taller than normal humans, their muscles denser, their reflexes sharper, their minds more resistant to fear and manipulation. Each wore armor modeled after Anakin's own, though in matte gray rather than silver, inscribed with protective wards that the Emperor himself had designed. These were not clones bred for obedience. These were warriors who had chosen to undergo the painful transformation, who had volunteered knowing that the process might kill them, who had emerged as something more than human, in service to a cause greater than themselves. They served because they believed in the Emperor's vision, in humanity's right to dominate the stars, in the necessity of strength to preserve civilization. And they followed Anakin, because he had proven himself worthy of that loyalty. "Lord Commander on deck." The call rang out as Anakin entered, and immediately hundreds of armored figures snapped to attention, their movements synchronized with military precision. "At ease," Anakin commanded, his voice carrying easily through the vast hangar. "Continue your preparations. We launch in 18 hours. As the soldiers resumed their work, 3 figures approached Anakin with the familiarity of long service: Rex, Cody, and Wolf, the clone commanders who had been among the first to receive the Proto-Space Marine enhancements, who had served under Anakin during the final months of the Clone Wars, and who had become his most trusted lieutenants in the years since. Rex, now designated as first captain of the 1st Legion, carried himself with the authority of someone who had earned respect through countless battles. His armor was marked with the blue stripes that designated his rank, and his helmet was maglocked to his belt. revealing features that had aged beyond what his accelerated growth would have produced. The enhancements had corrected the Kaminoan's designed obsolescence, giving him a natural lifespan. "Fleet's ready, sir," Rex reported, his voice carrying the slight roughness that came from years of shouting orders over battlefield chaos. "All ships report green across the board. Supplies are loaded for 18 months of independent operation, with manufacturing capabilities to extend that indefinitely if we establish proper supply lines." "Troop readiness?" Anakin asked. Cody stepped forward. The former commander of the 212th Attack Battalion now served as Anakin's strategic operations officer, his mind for logistics and planning making him invaluable for an expedition of this magnitude. 15,000 proto-space marines across all vessels, plus support personnel. Everyone's undergone final medical checks. No issues detected. Morale is high, the men are eager to prove themselves. "And they'll get that chance," Wolf added grimly. The scarred veteran, who had lost an eye during the Clone Wars and refused replacement even after his enhancement, commanded the Legion's reconnaissance forces. "Unknown regions aren't called that because they're friendly. We're heading into space that's killed every expedition the Republic ever sent." "Which is precisely why the Emperor chose us," Anakin replied. "We're not a Republic expedition. We're not scouts or explorers hoping to make peaceful contact. We're a military force prepared to establish dominance over whatever we encounter. The unknown regions will learn that the Galactic Alliance is not to be trifled with." The three commanders exchanged glances that spoke of shared history and mutual respect. They had followed Anakin through hell during the Clone Wars, had watched him transform from impulsive Jedi Padawan to controlled Grey Knight, had seen him defeat Count Dooku and Darth Sidious alike. If anyone could lead them into the unknown and bring them back alive, it was him. "What's our first objective?" Rex asked. Anakin pulled up a holographic star chart from the projector built into his vambrace. The image showed the galaxy in blue light, with the unknown regions depicted as a vast dark area spanning nearly a third of the galactic disk. "We enter here." Anakin indicated a point on the border between known and unknown space. "Initial reports suggest this corridor has the most stable hyperspace lanes, leading deeper into the region. We establish our first forward base on any suitable world we find, then use that as a staging point for further expansion. From there, we map systematically, sector by sector, until we've charted the entire region or encountered something that requires our immediate attention." "And if we encounter hostile forces?" Cody asked. "Then, we demonstrate why the Emperor chose Proto-Space Marines for this mission, rather than regular troops. We are not here to make friends, gentlemen. We're here to secure humanity's future. Any civilization that proves itself an ally will be treated as such. Any that proves itself a threat will be neutralized. There is no middle ground when the stakes are species survival." The words were harsh, perhaps harsher than the Anakin of 5 years ago would have spoken. But the Grey Knight understood what the Jedi Padawan had not. That mercy to enemies often meant cruelty to those they would harm. The Emperor had taught him that lesson through blood and pain, and he would not forget it now. "Understood, sir." All three commanders responded in unison. "Good. Make final preparations. I have one more goodbye to make before we depart." The apartment on Coruscant's upper levels had been their home since Padmé's exoneration from the false treason charges. It was elegant, without being ostentatious, befitting a senator who advocated for the common people, while also serving as wife to the Emperor's champion. The windows offered a spectacular view of the city planet's endless skyline, and the rooms were filled with the accumulated memories of a family that had somehow survived the machinations of a Sith Lord. Anakin found Padmé in the nursery, watching over the twins as they slept. Luke and Leia, 2 years old now, lay in their respective cribs with the peaceful expressions that only young children could maintain. They had inherited their father's strength in the Force, the Emperor had confirmed as much, but for now, they were simply children, blissfully unaware of the weight of expectation that would one day rest on their shoulders. "They'll be walking and talking in complete sentences by the time you return," Padmé said softly, not turning from her vigil. "You'll miss their first words, their first steps, their first everything." Anakin moved to stand beside her, his silver armor seeming out of place in the domestic setting. "I know, and I hate it. But But the galaxy needs you more than they do right now, Padme finished, finally turning to face him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, evidence of tears she had shed in private, but her expression was resolved. I understand, Anakin. I do. After everything we've been through, after Palpatine's manipulations and the false arrest and all of it, I understand that some threats are too important to ignore. I just wish understanding made it hurt less. I'll come back, Anakin promised, taking her hands in his gauntleted ones. The metal was cold against her skin, a reminder of how much he had changed. The Emperor promised me that much. The Emperor makes promises based on his calculations of probability and necessity, Padme replied with a sad smile. He sees you as a tool, Anakin. A valuable one. Yes, one. He's invested considerable effort in forging, but still a tool. Don't mistake his pragmatism for personal care. It was a criticism Padme had voiced before, her democratic ideals chafing against the Emperor's authoritarian efficiency. Anakin had learned to navigate between his loyalty to his master and his love for his wife, understanding that both perspectives held truth. He sees me as a weapon, Anakin acknowledged. But he's also the being who saved me from becoming Darth Vader, who gave me the training to resist Sidious's corruption, who built a galaxy where our children can grow up without fear of Sith manipulation. Whatever his motivations, his actions have been beneficial. For now, Padme said quietly. But absolute power, Anakin, it corrupts, even if the one wielding it has the best intentions. The Emperor has wielded absolute power for 40,000 years in his home galaxy. If he were susceptible to corruption, it would have manifested by now. Or perhaps it did, and that's why his Imperium became the nightmare he showed the Jedi Council. Have you considered that, Anakin? That maybe he's trying to do better here precisely because he recognizes his failures there? Anakin had no answer for that. The visions the Emperor had shared of the Imperium of Man, its religious tyranny, its endless wars, its suffering haunted him sometimes. Was this galaxy heading toward the same fate, just with different trappings? I have to believe we're building something better, he finally said. That the Emperor's experience with failure makes him more likely to succeed here. That my training as a Grey Knight means I can serve his purpose without losing myself. I have to believe that, Padme, or everything I've sacrificed means nothing. She reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the harder lines that had developed since his transformation. Just remember who you were before the armor, Anakin. The boy who wanted to free slaves. The young man who loved democracy. The husband who would do anything to protect his family. Don't let purpose consume the person. I won't, he promised. I'll carry you with me, all of you. You're the purpose behind my purpose, Padme. Protecting the galaxy means protecting you and Luke and Leia. I won't forget that. They held each other for a long moment, the silence speaking more than words could. Then Anakin gently pulled away, moving to the cribs where his children slept. He placed a hand on each of their heads, feeling through the Force the incredible potential that resided within them. Grow strong, he whispered. Learn everything your mother and the Emperor can teach you, and when I return, I'll teach you what it means to be a Grey Knight. You'll be better than me, both of you, I know it. Luke stirred slightly, his small hand grasping at air as if reaching for his father. Leia slept on, her expression peaceful but somehow determined even in slumber. They were so small, so vulnerable, so full of possibility. Anakin turned away before his resolve could weaken further. I'll send communications whenever possible, he told Padme as he moved toward the door. The Emperor has established relay stations that should allow messages to reach through the unknown regions. It won't be the same as being here, but at least you'll know I'm alive. I'll hold you to that, Padme replied. And Anakin, come back to us. Whatever you find out there, whatever threats you face, remember that we're waiting for you. That's an order from your wife, and it supersedes even the Emperor's commands. Despite the weight of the moment, Anakin found himself smiling. Yes, Senator. He left without looking back. If he had, he might not have had the strength to go at all. The indomitable Wills Bridge hummed with activity as the fleet prepared for its first jump into the unknown regions. Officers moved between stations with purposeful efficiency, running final system checks and confirming coordinates with the navigation teams. The main viewport showed the stars of known space, familiar constellations that generations of spacers had used to guide their journeys. Soon, those stars would be replaced by configurations no one from the Alliance had ever seen. Anakin stood at the command dais, elevated slightly above the rest of the bridge so he could observe all operations simultaneously. His silver armor had been polished to a mirror sheen for the occasion, and his presence radiated the controlled power that had become his hallmark. Around him, the bridge crew worked with the knowledge that they served under the Emperor's chosen champion, a responsibility they took with utmost seriousness. "All ships report ready for jump," Rex announced from his position at the tactical station. "Fleet formation is optimal. Hyperspace calculations confirmed by 3 independent navigation computers. Supplies secure, all personnel accounted for," Cody added from logistics. "We're as ready as we'll ever be, sir." Wolf's hologram flickered into existence from his position aboard the lead scout vessel. "Recon ships are in position. We'll jump 30 seconds ahead of the main fleet. Confirm the exit point is clear and signal for your arrival." Anakin nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. 15,000 proto-space marines, dozens of warships, countless tons of supplies, all of it under his command, all of it about to venture into space that had swallowed previous expeditions whole. "This is Lord Commander Skywalker to all ships." He spoke into the fleet-wide communications system, his voice carrying to every vessel in the formation. "In moments, we will make the first jump into the unknown regions. We go not as explorers hoping for peaceful contact, but as warriors establishing humanity's dominance over the final frontier. The Emperor has tasked us with securing the galaxy's future, and we will not fail him." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "Many of you underwent the transformation process, enduring pain that would break lesser beings because you believed in something greater than yourselves. That belief will be tested in the days ahead. We will face dangers no one in known space has encountered. We will fight enemies who have never heard of the Galactic Alliance. We will establish order in chaos, strength in the void, purpose in the unknown." Another pause. Then his voice took on a harder edge. "Remember your training. Remember your purpose. Remember that we are proto-space marines of the First Legion, and we do not fail. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We are the Emperor's will made manifest, and the unknown regions will learn to respect that will." The response came as a thunderous acknowledgement across the fleet. Communication channels thousands of enhanced warriors, affirming their readiness with a single word. "Aye, Captain Rex, signal the scout ships. Begin jump sequence." "Aye, Lord Commander. Scout ships away in 3, 2, 1, jump." On the tactical display, the icons representing Wolf's reconnaissance vessels winked out as they entered hyperspace, racing ahead to confirm the safety of their destination. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of machinery as everyone waited for the confirmation signal. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Anakin felt tension building on the bridge, though no one voiced their concerns. What if the scouts had emerged into an ambush? What if the hyperspace lane had been more unstable than calculated? Then, with a burst of static, Wolf's voice came through. "Exit point clear. No hostiles detected. You're good to jump, Lord Commander." Relief rippled through the bridge crew, quickly suppressed by military discipline. "Fleet-wide jump in 10 seconds, Anakin commanded. "All ships, engage on my mark. 10, 9, 8. The countdown seemed to stretch eternally, each second weighted with significance. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The stars outside the viewport elongated into streaks of light as the indomitable Will and its escort vessels jumped to hyperspace simultaneously. The familiar sight of faster-than-light travel filled the bridge, but this time it felt different. They weren't traveling between known systems on established routes. They were piercing the veil into territory that had remained mysterious for millennia. For 8 hours they traveled through hyperspace, the journey longer than typical jumps due to the less stable nature of the lanes in this region. Anakin used the time to review tactical assessments, study the limited data available on the unknown regions, and meditate using the techniques the Emperor had taught him. He centered himself, reinforced his mental defenses, and prepared for whatever might await them at their destination. When the ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, the viewport filled with a sight that made even the disciplined bridge crew gasp. They had emerged in a star system unlike any in known space. The primary star burned with a deep crimson light, casting everything in shades of red and shadow. 3 planets orbited this sun, their surfaces visible even from this distance due to the unusual properties of the light. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, there were asteroids, debris fields, and what appeared to be the wreckage of ancient vessels. What happened here? Rex wondered aloud, his tactical display filling with data as the ship's sensors worked overtime. A battle, Anakin replied, his force senses reaching out to touch the void around them. A very old battle. I can feel echoes in the force: death, violence, desperation. Thousands died here, perhaps tens of thousands. And their deaths were bad. How long ago? Cody asked, already calculating logistics for navigating through the debris. Centuries at minimum, perhaps millennia. The wreckage has had time to stabilize into orbital patterns. Anakin studied the tactical display, noting the configurations of the destroyed vessels. These aren't Republic designs, not separatist either. These ships belong to civilizations we've never encountered. So we found evidence of unknown species within our first jump. Wolf's voice came through the communication system. Can't say that's comforting, sir. Especially species capable of warfare on this scale. It's information, Anakin corrected. Information we didn't have before. That's the purpose of this expedition, to learn what lurks in the unknown regions before it learns about us. Rex, begin detailed scans of the wreckage. I want to know what kind of weapons caused this destruction, what technologies these ships used, and if possible, what species crewed them. Aye, Lord Commander. As the fleet spread out to begin its survey of the system, Anakin felt the first stirrings of concern in his gut. The unknown regions had already proven themselves to be far more complex than anyone had anticipated. Ancient battlefields, extinct civilizations, weapons of unknown origin, and this was only their first stop. What else awaited them in the darkness between stars? 3 weeks into the expedition, the First Legion had established its first forward base. The planet designated Alpha 7 in their charts was a rocky world with a thin but breathable atmosphere, situated at a strategic junction of several hyperspace lanes. It wasn't hospitable by any stretch of imagination, but it was defensible, and that mattered more than comfort. The base itself was a marvel of military engineering. Prefabricated structures had been deployed from the fleet's transport vessels, assembling themselves into fortified positions with minimal human intervention. Defense turrets sprouted from the rocky ground like metal flowers, their barrels tracking the skies for any threat. Barracks, command centers, medical facilities, and manufacturing plants all took shape within days, transforming the barren landscape into a functioning military installation. Anakin stood atop the command center, surveying the work with approval. His proto-space marines moved with purpose below, each squad assigned specific tasks in the base's construction. They worked without complaint despite the harsh conditions. The air was thin enough to cause discomfort even for enhanced lungs, and the temperature dropped to dangerous levels once the sun set. But they were not ordinary soldiers, and ordinary hardships meant nothing to them. Forward Base Alpha is 60% operational, Cody reported, climbing the stairs to join Anakin on the observation platform. Manufacturing facilities will be online within 2 days. We'll be able to produce replacement parts, ammunition, and basic equipment without relying on the fleet stores. Good. And the perimeter defenses? Fully operational. We've got overlapping fields of fire covering every approach, ground-based anti-air batteries, and the orbital defense platforms are scheduled for deployment tomorrow. Anyone trying to assault this position will pay dearly for the attempt. Anakin nodded, his gaze distant as he reached out with the Force to sense the surrounding space. This had become habit over the past weeks, regularly extending his awareness to check for threats that conventional sensors might miss. So far, they had encountered nothing living except themselves, but the evidence of past civilizations was everywhere. Every system they entered showed signs of ancient habitation, ruined cities on dead worlds, derelict space stations orbiting gas giants, more battlefields frozen in time, their combatants long dead, but their final struggles preserved in the vacuum. The unknown regions were not unknown because they were empty, they were unknown because whatever had lived here had died or disappeared long ago. Any progress on analyzing the wreckage samples? Anakin asked. The tech priests, sorry. The engineering corps are working around the clock, Cody replied. They've identified at least 7 distinct technological bases among the ruins we've cataloged. 7 different civilizations, sir, all of them apparently extinct. And the really concerning part? The damage pattern suggests they didn't just die out naturally. They were wiped out. By what? That's what we haven't figured out yet. The weapons signatures don't match anything in our databases. Not Republic, not Separatist, not even the Yuuzhan Vong bioweapons we've been training to counter. Something else killed these civilizations, and it was thorough about it. The implications sat heavily in Anakin's mind. He had come here expecting to find threats that was the entire purpose of the expedition. But finding evidence of genocide on a galactic scale? That suggested a level of danger that even the Emperor might have underestimated. Double the perimeter patrols, Anakin ordered. And I want long-range sensor sweeps running continuously. Whatever killed these civilizations might still be out there, and I don't intend for us to become the next extinct species in this region. Understood, sir. There's one more thing. Cody's expression became thoughtful. The scouts have detected something interesting about 40 light-years from here. Organized energy signatures. Not natural phenomena, these are artificial, and they're current. Anakin's attention sharpened. Current, as in recent? Current as in happening right now. Whatever's producing those signatures is active. We might have finally found something alive in this dead region. This was what they had been waiting for, contact with a living civilization. But after seeing the ruins of so many others, Anakin felt caution rather than excitement. Prepare a reconnaissance force. I'll lead it personally. If there's an active civilization out there, I want to assess them before they have a chance to assess us. Sir, is that wise? Leading personally, I mean. You're the Lord Commander. If something happens to you, then Rex takes command, as per succession protocols. Anakin interrupted. But this is too important to delegate, Cody. We're potentially making first contact with an unknown species. I need to evaluate them with the Force, sense their intentions, judge whether they're potential allies or threats. That requires my direct involvement. Cody looked like he wanted to argue further but recognized the futility. When Anakin had made a decision based on his Force instincts, there was no changing his mind. I'll have a strike force ready within the hour, sir. Good. And Cody? Make sure Rex knows that if this goes badly, his priority is the mission, not retrieving my body. The unknown regions must be mapped, regardless of what happens to me. With respect, sir, if something out there can kill you, I'm not sure any of us will be making it back anyway. It was meant as dark humor. But the truth in the statement lingered as Anakin prepared for what might be the expedition's most important mission yet. The reconnaissance force consisted of 3 vessels, Anakin's personal frigate, the Greyblade, and 2 escort destroyers. They traveled through hyperspace toward the coordinates where the energy signatures had been detected, each crew member tense with anticipation. This would be their first encounter with a living civilization in the unknown regions, and no one knew what to expect. When they dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge, Anakin immediately understood why this place was different from the dead systems they had previously explored. The system was alive with activity. Dozens of vessels moved between the planets in organized patterns, patrol routes, trading lanes, military formations. The ships themselves were unlike anything in Alliance databases. Angular designs with a blue-gray coloration, their hulls displaying a precision of engineering that spoke of advanced technology. They moved with economic efficiency, no wasted movement, each vessel clearly part of a larger coordinated whole. Lord Commander, the tactical officer reported, his voice tight with tension. We're being scanned. Multiple targeting locks have been established on our vessels. Expected, Anakin replied calmly, though he was already extending his Force senses toward the alien ships. What he felt surprised him, not hostility, but wariness. Caution. The minds aboard those vessels were disciplined, analytical, evaluating the newcomers with careful consideration rather than panic or aggression. They're hailing us, the communications officer announced. Audio only. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled to life. and a voice spoke in heavily accented but comprehensible. Basic. Unidentified vessels. You have entered Chiss Ascendancy space. State your identity and purpose immediately, or you will be fired upon. You have 60 seconds to comply. Chiss. The name triggered something in Anakin's memory, vague references in Republic databases about a species from the unknown regions. Blue-skinned near-humans, known for their military prowess and isolationist tendencies. Little concrete information existed because the Chiss had actively avoided contact with the Republic. This is Lord Commander Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Alliance 1st Legion, Anakin responded, choosing his words carefully. We are conducting a mapping expedition of the unknown regions under orders from the Emperor of Mankind. We come not with hostile intent but with an offer of potential alliance against mutual threats. Silence followed his transmission. Anakin could sense the deliberation happening aboard the Chiss vessels, multiple minds conferring, analyzing his words, debating responses. The targeting locks remained active. Finally, a different voice responded, younger, more authoritative, and tinged with what Anakin's enhanced perception recognized as curiosity. Lord Commander Skywalker, I am Commander Mithra Nuruodo of the Chiss Expansionary Defense Force. Your claim of peaceful intent is noted, but your military formation and weapons signatures suggest otherwise. The Chiss Ascendancy does not recognize your Emperor of Mankind or your Galactic Alliance. Explain why we should not view you as invaders. Anakin smiled slightly. This Mithra Nuruodo he would need to get a shorter designation was direct and intelligent. Good. Anakin preferred dealing with competent opponents rather than fearful ones. Commander, if we were invaders, we would not have announced ourselves. We would not be sitting here with our shields down, making ourselves vulnerable to your weapons. And I certainly would not be offering to meet with you face to face, alone if necessary, to discuss our mutual interests. More silence, more deliberation. Then, you would come aboard a Chiss vessel alone. That is either very brave or very foolish, Lord Commander. Neither, Anakin replied. It is confident. I have abilities that your people may not have encountered before. I do not fear treachery because I would sense it before it occurred. Meet with me, Commander Mithra Nuruodo. I believe we have much to discuss that could benefit both our peoples. The pause this time was shorter. Very well, Lord Commander. I am intrigued. Proceed to the following coordinates and dock with my vessel. Come alone and unarmed. If this is a trap, know that you will not leave Chiss space alive. Understood, Commander. I appreciate your willingness to talk. You won't regret it. He hoped he wasn't lying. The interior of the Chiss warship reflected the same precision Anakin had observed in their external design. Everything was ordered, efficient, purposeful. No decoration for decoration's sake, no wasted space, no unnecessary elements. It reminded him somewhat of the proto-space marine aesthetic function over form, effectiveness over beauty. Chiss officers lined the corridors as he was escorted toward what he assumed was the command deck. They were striking in appearance, blue skin ranging from pale azure to deep navy, black hair uniformly styled in military regulation, and most notably, eyes that glowed with a deep red luminescence. Those eyes followed him with undisguised curiosity and suspicion, evaluating every aspect of his silver armor, his height, his bearing. Anakin extended his force senses carefully, reading the emotional signatures of those around him. Caution dominated. These were a careful people, methodical in their approach to everything, including potential threats. But underneath the caution, he sensed intelligence, duty, and a fierce pride in their civilization. These were not enemies by nature. They were simply people who had learned to be wary in a region where ancient battles had wiped out entire species. The escort stopped before a large door that slid open to reveal a tactical command center. Holographic displays showed the entire system in miniature, with ship positions, patrol routes, and defensive installations clearly marked. It was an impressive display of spatial awareness and coordination. And there, standing before the main tactical display, was a Chiss officer who could only be Mithra Nuruodo. He was young, younger than Anakin had expected from his voice. Perhaps the Chiss equivalent of 30 standard years. Though, with an alien species, it was difficult to be certain. He wore the same uniform as the others, but with additional rank insignia that marked his authority. His posture was perfect, his expression neutral, and his glowing red eyes fixed on Anakin with an intensity that suggested nothing escaped his notice. "Lord Commander Skywalker." The Chiss commander spoke, his basic even more precise in person. "I am Commander Mithra Nuruodo. For ease of communication, your people may call me Thrawn. Most find my full name cumbersome." "Thrawn," Anakin acknowledged, inclining his head slightly in respect. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I know the Chiss have traditionally avoided contact with the Republic and its successor states." "Traditional avoidance stems from traditional threats," Thrawn replied, gesturing for Anakin to approach the tactical display. "The Republic was never a direct danger to us, merely an annoyance whose politics occasionally spilled into our territory. But you represent something different, Lord Commander. Your Emperor of Mankind has established a military structure that our intelligence suggests is far more aggressive than the Republic ever was. And you personally have abilities that our analysts cannot fully explain." He touched a control, and the tactical display shifted to show recordings of Anakin footage that must have been captured from long-range scans of the First Legion's activities over the past weeks. You moved a disabled shuttle with your mind from a distance of several hundred meters. You sensed an unstable asteroid field before your sensors detected it. You communicate with your troops through some form of telepathy that bypasses normal communication channels. These are not normal human capabilities. "No," Anakin agreed. "They're not. I have been enhanced, physically and mentally, by the Emperor of Mankind. I am what is called a Grey Knight, a warrior trained to use the Force, which is what my people call the energy field that connects all living things, in ways that transcend traditional limitations." Thrawn's eyes narrowed slightly, the first emotional reaction Anakin had observed from him. "The Force. We know of this phenomenon. The Jedi of the Old Republic used it, though their abilities were limited by self-imposed restrictions. You claim to have transcended those restrictions?" "I have. The Emperor taught me that the Force is simply power, and only the wielder's purpose determines whether that power serves or destroys. I use all aspects of it, what Jedi called light and dark, in service to a greater purpose." "And what purpose is that?" "Humanity's survival, the protection of civilization against extinction-level threats. Which brings me to why I sought contact with your people, Thrawn." Anakin gestured at the tactical display. "We've spent 3 weeks mapping systems in this region. Every single one shows evidence of extinct civilizations. Someone or something wiped them out, methodically and completely. Your people survived. You've maintained your civilization in a region where others have died. I want to know how. And I want to know if the threat that killed those others still exists." Thrawn was silent for a long moment, his red eyes studying Anakin with an intensity that would have been uncomfortable for someone without mental fortifications. He was being evaluated, Anakin realized, assessed not just for his words but for his bearing, his armor, his movements, everything that might reveal truth beneath surface presentations. Finally, Thrawn spoke. "The Chiss ascendancy has survived because we learned the first rule of this region. Strike first against emerging threats, or be destroyed by them. We do not wait for enemies to attack. We identify dangers and eliminate them before they can grow strong enough to threaten us." "Preemptive strikes," Anakin said. "The Republic would have called that aggressive warmongering. The Republic is dead, replaced by your alliance," Thrawn replied without emotion. "And the civilizations that waited for threats to attack them first are extinct. Judge our methods by results, Lord Commander, not by idealistic principles that prove fatal in practice." It was a philosophy that aligned more closely with the Emperor's teachings than Anakin might have expected. The God Emperor had always emphasized pragmatism over idealism, survival over principles that led to extinction. And the specific threat? The one that destroyed those civilizations? Thrawn touched another control, and the display shifted to show a region of space beyond Chiss territory. "You call them Yuuzhan Vong. We call them far outsiders. They exist beyond the galactic rim, and they have been probing this region for centuries. The civilizations you found evidence of? They were destroyed by Vong raiding forces, testing defenses, identifying weaknesses, preparing for larger invasion." Anakin felt ice in his stomach. The invasion the Emperor warned about. Indeed. We have been aware of this threat for over a century. We have been preparing, building defenses, developing weapons specifically designed to counter their organic technology. We know they will come eventually, their religion demands it. And we know that when they come, they will come in numbers that will require more than just Chiss military might to repel. You need allies. We need competent allies, Thrawn corrected, not the Republic's bureaucratic inefficiency or political infighting. We need military forces that can match the Vong's brutality with coordinated resistance. Your First Legion may qualify, depending on what I observe of your capabilities. Your Emperor's ability to prepare the rest of your galaxy will determine whether this region survives the coming storm. Anakin saw the opening and took it. Then let me propose a formal alliance. Chiss tactical knowledge combined with Alliance military strength. We share information about the Vong threat, coordinate defensive preparations, establish mutual support protocols. When the invasion comes, and you're right, it will come, we face it together rather than separately. Thrawn was quiet again, that analytical mind processing Anakin's proposal from every angle. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a small expression that transformed his stern features into something almost approachable. You are not what I expected, Lord Commander. The reports we had of you suggested an emotionally volatile warrior. Instead, I find someone who thinks strategically, who offers partnership rather than demanding submission, who understands that mutual survival requires mutual respect. I am favorably impressed. Then you'll consider the alliance? I will advocate for it with the Chiss ruling families. It will not be easy, they are traditionalists who view outside contact with suspicion. But the Vong threat is real, and even they recognize that isolation may not be survivable. Give me time to make the case. Remain in this system as our guests. Let our military observers study your forces, as I'm certain you will study ours. Let us build trust through demonstrated competence rather than empty promises. It was more than Anakin had hoped for in a first meeting. Agreed. And Thrawn, I believe this is the beginning of a partnership that will prove valuable for both our peoples. As do I, Lord Commander. As do I. Over the following weeks, the First Legion and the Chiss Expansionary Defense Force engaged in a careful dance of mutual evaluation. Thrawn, true to his word, had arranged for Anakin's forces to remain in Chiss space as guests, with observers from both sides carefully studying the other's capabilities. The Proto-Space Marines impressed the Chiss with their physical prowess and discipline. Training exercises where Alliance soldiers demonstrated their enhanced strength, reflexes, and coordination drew crowds of Chiss observers who took meticulous notes. The Chiss, in turn, showed tactical acumen that exceeded anything Anakin had witnessed in the Clone Wars. Their battle simulations were masterpieces of coordination, with each unit knowing exactly where to be and when to be there. But it was in the command discussions between Anakin and Thrawn that the real understanding developed. You see warfare as art, Anakin observed during one late-night session aboard Thrawn's flagship. They had taken to meeting privately, each finding in the other a mind capable of engaging with complex strategic concepts, not just winning battles, but achieving victory with elegance. Thrawn inclined his head in acknowledgement. Every species reveals its nature through its art. War is merely another canvas. The Yuuzhan Vong, for example, their organic technology is art to them, shaped living matter that reflects their religious devotion to pain and sacrifice. To defeat them, one must understand not just their military capabilities, but their aesthetic sensibilities, their cultural values, their concept of honorable combat. And the Chiss? What does your art reveal? Precision, order, the beauty of systems functioning in perfect harmony. Our art reflects a people who value structure, who find satisfaction in efficiency, who see chaos as the enemy of civilization. Thrawn gestured at a piece of Chiss sculpture that decorated his ready room, all clean lines and mathematical proportions. We do not fight for glory or conquest. We fight to maintain the order necessary for our civilization to function. Anakin considered this, relating it to his own training. The Emperor taught me that purpose must underlie power. Without purpose, power becomes corruption. Your art suggests a people whose purpose is the maintenance of order itself, a valid assessment. And your art, Lord Commander? What does the Empire, the Alliance reveal about itself through its creative expressions? It was a good question, and one Anakin had to think about. Contradiction, perhaps. The Alliance inherited both Republic idealism and Imperial pragmatism. Our art is still finding its voice, trying to reconcile democracy's celebration of individual expression with military necessity's demand for conformity. We're a work in progress. Robin. Contradictions can be resolved, or they can tear civilizations apart, Thrawn observed. Which will yours choose? That's partly why I'm here, Anakin admitted. The unknown regions, this expedition, it gives the Alliance a common enemy to unite against. External threats can resolve internal contradictions by forcing focus on survival rather than ideology. Ah, so your Emperor is a student of social dynamics as well as warfare. He understood that your newly formed alliance needed a crusade to solidify its identity. By sending you here, he accomplishes multiple objectives: mapping territory, identifying threats, and giving your people a unifying purpose. The insight was sharp enough to cut. Thrawn saw things that others missed, understood motivations behind actions in ways that made Anakin feel transparent. You would have made an excellent Grey Knight, Anakin said. Your mind works in ways similar to how the Emperor teaches. I will take that as high praise. Now, shall we discuss the tactical implications of the intelligence our scouts gathered yesterday? The Vong probe that was detected. Their discussion continued deep into the night, two military minds from vastly different backgrounds finding common ground in their dedication to protecting their respective peoples. The alliance was formalized 6 weeks after first contact. It was not a simple process. Thrawn had to convince the Chiss ruling families that external partnership was necessary, while Anakin had to coordinate with the Emperor back in known space to ensure the alliance had official backing. Communications across such vast distances were challenging, but the relay stations the Emperor had established proved their worth, allowing information to pass between the unknown regions and Coruscant. The Emperor's response to news of the Chiss alliance had been characteristically pragmatic. The Chiss represent exactly the type of allies we need: competent, disciplined, and possessing valuable intelligence about the threats we face. Continue building this relationship. Their knowledge of the Yuuzhan Vong alone makes them invaluable. With both sides committed, the alliance took formal shape. The Chiss provided star charts of the unknown regions far more complete than anything the First Legion had managed to compile. Centuries of careful mapping distilled into data that would have taken Anakin's forces decades to gather. Independently, they shared intelligence on the Yuuzhan Vong, their social structure, their military tactics, their religious beliefs, their technological capabilities. In exchange, Anakin offered Alliance military support. If the Vong attacked Chiss space, the First Legion would respond. He also demonstrated force techniques that the Chiss had only heard rumors about, showing how such abilities could be integrated into military operations. The Chiss, pragmatic as ever, recognized the tactical advantages of having force-sensitive warriors as allies. The formal documents are signed, Thrawn announced as he and Anakin stood in the same tactical command center where they had first met. The Chiss Ascendancy and your Galactic Alliance are now bound by mutual defense obligations. If either party is attacked, the other responds. We share intelligence on common threats. We coordinate defensive preparations for the inevitable Vong invasion. It's a historic moment, Anakin acknowledged. First formal alliance between a known space government and an unknown region's power. Historic, yes, but also pragmatic. Sentiment is less important than survival. Thrawn turned to face Anakin directly, his red eyes reflecting the tactical displays around them. Now that the pleasantries are completed, we should discuss why I asked you here today specifically. Anakin had sensed something beyond normal business in Thrawn's summons. What's happened? Our long-range sensors detected a Yuuzhan Vong force entering the region 3 days ago. Not scouts, these are war vessels. Several world ships accompanied by hundreds of support craft. Their trajectory suggests they're heading for this sector. Ice formed in Anakin's gut. How long until they arrive? At their current speed, approximately 6 weeks. But Anakin. Thrawn used his first name, something he rarely did. These are not the same as the vanguard your Emperor repelled. Our intelligence suggests these are revenge forces, war chiefs who lost honor when the main fleet decided to bypass your galaxy. They've come specifically to find and destroy whatever force repelled the vanguard. They've come for blood. They're coming for me, Anakin realized. The Emperor sent them that psychic warning. They must have tracked its origin point. Most likely. Your Emperor's demonstration of power saved your galaxy from immediate invasion, but it also painted a target on you. The Vong war chiefs cannot allow such a challenge to go unanswered. Their religion demands they prove their superiority or die trying. Anakin's mind raced through tactical possibilities. His forces were strong 15,000 proto-space marines with Alliance military technology, but they were far from home with limited resupply options. The Chiss could provide support, but their defensive doctrine made them cautious about committing to offensive operations. This is why you formalized the Alliance now, Anakin said, understanding dawning. You knew about this incoming force and wanted the formal framework in place before I learned about it. Indeed, I am bound by our alliance to support you, but only because that alliance now exists formally. Had you learned of this threat before signatures were in place, you might have withdrawn to protect your forces, and the Chiss would have faced this Vong incursion alone. This way, we face it together, as we should. It was manipulative, but Anakin couldn't fault the logic. Thrawn had ensured their alliance would be tested by fire immediately, binding them together through shared combat rather than just shared words. You're a more cunning political operator than you let on, Anakin observed. I prefer to think of it as strategic relationship management. Will you stay and fight, Lord Commander? Or will you retreat to known space and leave the Chiss to face this threat alone? It wasn't really a question. Anakin Skywalker, Grey Knight and Emperor's champion, did not retreat from threats. He met them head-on with overwhelming force. We fight, Anakin declared. Contact your military command. We have 6 weeks to prepare a defense that will teach these Vong war chiefs exactly why they should fear the Emperor's forces. Thrawn's smile was predatory. I was hoping you would say that. I have already begun developing tactical scenarios. The Vong expect to find a weakened expeditionary force far from support. Instead, they will find a coordinated Chiss alliance defense that will crush them utterly. Show me what you have in mind. As Thrawn began outlining his tactical projections, Anakin felt the familiar calm that came before battle settle over him. This was what he had been trained for, not just individual combat against dark side users, but warfare on a scale that would determine the fate of civilizations. The Yuuzhan Vong were coming for revenge. They would find their deaths instead. Part 10. The 6 weeks before the Yuuzhan Vong arrival became a frenzy of preparation. Every moment was consumed with defensive planning, troop positioning, and tactical coordination between Chiss and Alliance forces. Anakin had never worked so intensely, not even during the Clone Wars when separatist forces threatened Republic worlds on a daily basis. Thrawn proved himself invaluable during this period. The Chiss commander's mind seemed to operate on a level that Anakin could only describe as prescient, though he knew it was simply extraordinary intelligence applied with ruthless efficiency. Thrawn studied every scrap of information available about the incoming Vong force, analyzing their ship configurations, their likely approach vectors, their probable tactical doctrines. The Vong war chiefs will expect us to defend statically, Thrawn explained during one of their planning sessions. The tactical display showed the Chiss system where they had established their combined headquarters. Their culture prizes direct confrontation. They will assume we will meet them in honorable battle at a fixed point. And we won't? Anakin asked, though he already suspected the answer. We will give them that appearance while executing something far more complex. The Vong despise deception. They see it as cowardly. That cultural blind spot is their greatest weakness. Thrawn manipulated the display, showing a three-dimensional battle plan that unfolded in stages. We present them with what they expect. A defensive line, heavily fortified, seemingly designed to absorb their assault. They will commit fully to breaking that line because their honor demands frontal assault against prepared defenses. But the line is a trap. The line is bait. While their main force engages what they believe is our primary defense, your proto-space marines will execute a series of strikes against their world ships from unexpected vectors. The Vong are accustomed to fighting enemies who fear their biotechnology. They are not accustomed to fighting enemies who understand that biotechnology and attack its specific vulnerabilities. Anakin studied the plan, his tactical mind honed through both Jedi training and the Emperor's ruthless instruction, identifying the elegance of Thrawn's strategy. It wasn't just about defeating the Vong, it was about defeating them in a way that exploited their psychological weaknesses as much as their military ones. You've studied their art, Anakin realized. You mentioned before that understanding a species' art reveals their nature. You've been applying that to the Vong. Thrawn's expression showed satisfaction at being understood. Indeed, Vong bioengineering is their highest art form. Every creature they create, every living weapon they craft, reflects their religious devotion to pain and sacrifice. Their world ships are not merely vessels, they are living temples to their gods. Attacking those world ships isn't just military strategy, it's spiritual warfare. We will be striking at the very heart of their religious identity. They'll fight even harder if we threaten their world ships. They will fight with desperation rather than discipline. And desperate enemies make mistakes that disciplined enemies do not. We will force them to choose between tactical wisdom and religious obligation. Given their cultural values, they will choose religion every time, and that choice will be their undoing. The plan required precise execution. Anakin spent long hours with Rex, Cody, and Wolf, drilling their proto-space marines in the specific tactics Thrawn had designed. The enhanced soldiers adapted quickly, their modified cognition allowing them to process complex tactical scenarios faster than baseline humans could manage. "We're essentially becoming bait," Rex observed during one training session. The first captain had grasped the essentials of Thrawn's strategy immediately. "We draw them in, make them commit, then hit them where they're not expecting." "Bait implies sacrifice," Anakin corrected. "We're not sacrificing anyone. We're maneuvering them into a position where their strength becomes weakness. There's a difference." "Understood, sir. The men are ready. Whatever those Vong throw at us, we'll hold the line." Holding the line. It sounded simple enough, but Anakin knew what it would cost. The Yuuzhan Vong were unlike any enemy the Proto-Space Marines had faced. Their biotechnology made them immune to many conventional weapons. Their warriors felt pain as religious ecstasy rather than deterrent. Their dedication to combat was absolute, driven by belief rather than mere military discipline. This would be a true test of whether the Emperor's enhancements and training had created soldiers capable of standing against the galaxy's most fearsome warriors. Part 11. The Yuuzhan Vong fleet emerged from dark space exactly when Thrawn had predicted 6 weeks to the day after their initial detection. Anakin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will, watching the tactical display as hostile icons multiplied across the screen. Confirmed count: 4 world ships, 72 support vessels, approximately 15,000 warriors total, the tactical officer reported, his voice steady despite the enormity of what they faced. "They're forming up in standard Vong assault configuration." Anakin studied the enemy formation with enhanced senses, reaching out through the Force to touch the minds of those aboard the organic vessels. What he found made his jaw tighten. Rage. Pure, burning rage that transcended anything he had encountered before. These Vong war chiefs had come not just for military victory but for revenge against the insult dealt to their species when the Emperor had repelled their vanguard. They meant to kill everything in this region of space, to erase any trace of the Alliance's presence as proof of Vong superiority. "They're broadcasting," the communications officer announced. "Should I put it through?" Anakin commanded. The main screen flickered, and a Vong face appeared. It was Anakin's first time seeing one of the far outsiders directly, and the sight was disturbing even for someone who had witnessed the Emperor's memories of chaos daemons. The Vong's face was a ruin of ritualistic scarring and deliberate disfigurement. What might once have been humanoid features had been carved into something that glorified pain. Lips split and reformed, nose flattened and pierced with bone, skin tattooed with patterns that seemed to writhe with malevolent purpose. But the eyes were the worst. Flat, black, utterly devoid of anything Anakin would recognize as mercy or compassion. I am Vong La, Supreme Commander of this blessed force. The Vong spoke, his voice guttural and filled with contempt. We come to cleanse this region of the infidels who dared challenge the Yuuzhan Vong. Your false emperor's arrogance has doomed you. Surrender your vessels and submit to sacrifice, and I will grant you quick deaths. Resist, and you will know pain beyond your comprehension before your spirits are offered to the true gods. Anakin stepped forward, ensuring his silver armor was visible in the transmission. He drew on his training, channeling confidence without arrogance, strength without cruelty. Vong La, I am Lord Commander Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Alliance 1st Legion. I speak not just for my forces, but for the Chiss Ascendancy who stand with us. You come seeking revenge for a defeat you did not personally suffer, to restore honor that was never yours to lose. This is foolishness. The Vong commander's scarred face contorted with rage. You dare mock our sacred quest? The far outsiders do not know defeat. The weak vanguard was recalled by cowards who feared true glory. We are not cowards. We will show this galaxy that the Yuuzhan Vong cannot be stopped by technological abominations or false powers. You speak of our technology as abomination while sailing ships that are themselves living creatures twisted to serve your purposes, Anakin replied calmly. You speak of false powers while worshipping gods that demand you mutilate your own flesh. You are not warriors, Vong La. You are zealots, and zealotry has always been the refuge of minds too weak for reason. The taunt was calculated. Thrawn had suggested that provoking the Vong's religious sensibilities would cloud their tactical judgment. From the fury that now burned in Vong La's expression, it had worked. Infidel, you will die screaming for that blasphemy. I will personally tear your still beating heart from your chest and offer it to Yuuzhan. All ships, advance. Show these creatures what it means to face the true chosen. The transmission cut off, and immediately the Vong fleet surged forward. No further communication, no tactical probing, no cautious approach. Pure aggressive assault driven by religious fury and wounded pride. They're coming straight for us, Rex observed from his station. No attempt at flanking maneuvers or tactical positioning. Exactly as Thrawn predicted, Anakin confirmed. All ships, execute defensive formation Oryx 7. We let them come to us. And Rex, signal the Chiss that Phase 1 is commencing. Aye, Lord Commander. As the Alliance and Chiss vessels moved into their predetermined positions, Anakin watched the Vong fleet approach with the confidence of someone who had planned for exactly this scenario. The enemy saw a defensive line waiting to be broken. They didn't see the trap closing around them. Part 12. The initial exchange of fire was brutal in its intensity. Vong plasma weapons launched from living creatures that had been bred for destruction slammed into Alliance shields with force that would have vaporized unenhanced vessels. The ships shuddered under the impacts, but the modified hull plating and shield generators held. Return fire from the Alliance fleet was equally devastating. Turbo laser batteries targeted the organic hulls of Vong support craft, burning through living tissue that screamed in frequencies Anakin could sense through the Force. It was disturbing. These weren't merely ships, they were creatures, alive in ways that mechanical vessels were not. Destroying them felt different from destroying droids or even conventional ships, but he couldn't afford to let that hesitation affect his judgment. The Vong had come to exterminate them. Mercy in such circumstances wasn't virtue, it was suicide. Enemy formation is holding steady, Cody reported from his tactical station. They're absorbing our fire and continuing to advance. Their larger vessels are taking point, using their mass to shield the troop transports behind them. World ships are deploying screening organisms, another officer added. Some kind of biological defense that's absorbing our weapons fire. Thrawn's voice came through the tactical channel from his position aboard the Chiss flagship positioned at the formation's flank. Expected. The Vong call them Dovin Basil's creatures that create miniature gravity wells to intercept projectiles. Concentrate fire on specific targets rather than spreading it. Overwhelm individual Dovin Basils rather than trying to penetrate the entire screen. Anakin relayed the orders, and immediately the Alliance weapons fire became more focused. Instead of trying to damage multiple Vong vessels, batteries concentrated on single targets. The results were impressive. Individual Dovin basils couldn't handle the concentrated firepower and failed, allowing weapons to punch through to the vulnerable organic hulls beneath. "Multiple hits on enemy support craft," Rex announced with grim satisfaction. 3 confirmed kills. But the Vong were adapting. Their formation tightened, allowing neighboring Dovin basils to overlap their protection, creating a coordinated defense that required even more concentrated fire to penetrate. "They're learning faster than anticipated," Thrawn observed. "Their organic technology allows rapid biological adaptation. We need to move to Phase 2 before they fully compensate for our tactics." Agreed. Anakin opened a channel to his ground forces. "All strike teams, prepare for boarding action. We're going to give the Vong exactly what they want, close combat." The Proto-Space Marines had been waiting for this order. Throughout the fleet, enhanced soldiers moved to boarding craft, heavily armored shuttles designed to punch through organic hulls and deliver troops directly into enemy ships. This was what they had trained for, what their enhanced physiology made them uniquely suited for. "Lord Commander," Rex spoke with an edge of concern in his voice. "Intelligence suggests Vong warriors are individually superior to even enhanced humans in close combat. Their pain tolerance, their biological weapons, their fanaticism. Individually superior, perhaps," Anakin interrupted. "But we have something they don't. We have purpose beyond rage. We have discipline beyond fanaticism. And we have training that transcends their religious devotion. Those factors will make the difference." He hoped he was right. The boarding craft launched in waves, their armored prows designed to penetrate organic hulls through a combination of thermal lances and molecular acid compounds. They raced toward the Vong fleet like silver daggers thrown at a living enemy. The Vong response was immediate and vicious. Plasma fire tracked the boarding craft, while smaller organic interceptors, creatures that were half ship, half animal, launched from the world ships to engage them. Dozens of boarding craft were destroyed in the first minutes, their Proto-Space Marine crews dying before they could even engage the enemy directly. But dozens more got through. Anakin watched the tactical display as the first boarding craft punched through a Vong support vessel's hull. Immediately, his force senses were flooded with the violence that erupted within enhanced humans, meeting Vong warriors in close-quarters combat that was savage beyond description. Reports began flooding the communication channels. Team Aurek established beachhead on target vessel. Heavy resistance, but we're holding. Team Besh taking casualties. Vong warriors are using some kind of biological weapon that ignores armor. Team Kresh has reached the bridge. These things don't stop fighting even when you shoot them multiple times. The Proto-Space Marines were holding, but just barely. The Vong's reputation as fearsome warriors was proving well-deserved. Even enhanced soldiers with superior weapons were struggling against enemies who felt no fear, experienced pain as pleasure, and fought with the certainty of religious zealots. But they were also succeeding. Slowly, painfully, the boarding teams were accomplishing their objectives, disabling propulsion systems, destroying weapons nodes, creating chaos within the organic vessels. It wasn't the clean victory of capital ship exchanges. It was brutal, bloody work that cost lives on both sides. "Enemy formation is fracturing," Thrawn announced. "Multiple vessels are losing coordination as internal fighting disrupts their biological command systems. Now is the time for Phase 3. Anakin had been waiting for this moment. Chiss forces, execute flanking maneuver. All Alliance vessels, increase pressure on the center. We squeeze them between us." The tactical display showed the trap closing. Chiss vessels that had been holding position suddenly moved with precision coordination, cutting off the Vong's retreat vectors, while simultaneously targeting the world ship's vulnerable areas that the boarding teams had identified. Tsavong La's voice cut through the communication channels again, broadcasting to his own forces but audible to the Alliance as well. "The infidels seek to surround us. All world ships, concentrate fire on their command vessel, kill their leader and the rest will fall." 4 world ships turned their attention toward the indomitable will. Anakin felt the shift in the battle's focus, felt the weight of concentrated firepower that was about to descend on his ship. "Evasive maneuvers," he commanded. "All point defense systems engage." But he knew it wouldn't be enough. The Vong were throwing everything at him specifically, correctly identifying him as the linchpin of the Alliance forces. If his flagship fell, morale would shatter. Thrawn's voice came through urgently. Anakin, you need to relocate. Transfer command to another vessel. They're specifically targeting you. No. The word came out with absolute certainty. If I run, they'll see weakness. Everything we've done showing strength, demonstrating that we won't be intimidated, it all falls apart if I flee now. This isn't about pride. This is about understanding the enemy you taught me so well, Thrawn. You said their art reveals their nature. They respect strength, even in enemies. If I stand and face their assault, even if my ship takes damage, they'll respect that. If I run, they'll know we can be broken psychologically. Trust me on this. A pause, then. You're correct. It's strategically sound, even if it's personally reckless. We'll provide covering fire, but your ship will take significant damage. Then she'll have scars worth boasting about. All hands, brace for impact. The Vong world ships opened fire simultaneously, and the indomitable will became the center of a hellstorm of organic plasma and biological weapons. The ship bucked under the assault, shields flaring and failing in sections, hull breaches opening in multiple locations. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel as automatic containment systems engaged. Anakin stood firm on the bridge, refusing to take cover, refusing to show any sign of fear. His crew, seeing their commander's unwavering stance, drew courage from it. They worked their stations with grim determination, returning fire even as their ship was battered. Minutes passed that felt like hours. The indomitable will was hurt, badly hurt, but she stayed in the fight. And as Anakin had predicted, the Vong assault's fury began to wane. Not because they were running out of ammunition, organic weapons didn't work that way, but because something had shifted in their approach. They had expected the Alliance commander to flee when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, he had stood and absorbed their best attack. In Vong culture, such behavior demanded respect, however grudgingly given. Savong La is broadcasting again, the communications officer reported. Put it through. The Vong commander's scarred face appeared, but his expression was different now. The blind rage had been replaced with something else, respect mingled with hatred. You do not run, infidel. You stand and take our punishment like a true warrior. This is unexpected. Perhaps you are worthy of more than simple slaughter. I challenge you, Anakin Skywalker. Personal combat. Your skills against mine. If you win, my forces withdraw. If I win, your people surrender for sacrifice. Do you have the courage to face me alone, or is your strength only in hiding behind ships and soldiers? The bridge fell silent. Every officer looked at Anakin, waiting for his response. The challenge was exactly what Thrawn had suggested might happen if Anakin showed sufficient strength to earn Vong respect. It was also potentially suicidal. Savong La was a supreme commander because he had proven himself in countless battles. He was a master of Vong martial arts, wielding weapons that were living extensions of his own body. He had killed enemies that would make even proto-space marines hesitate. But Anakin Skywalker was a Grey Knight, trained by the God Emperor of mankind himself. He had defeated Darth Sidious in single combat. He had channeled powers that transcended normal force use. I accept your challenge, Savong La, Anakin replied, his voice carrying across the tactical channels. Name the time and place, but know this: when I defeat you, and I will defeat you, your warriors will remember that it was not technology or numbers that won this battle. It was a single human who proved himself stronger than your greatest champion. Your gods will weep at that humiliation. Savong La's face contorted with rage, but also anticipation. In 1 hour, on my command world ship, bring no weapons, save your body, and whatever powers your false gods grant you. I will bring only my living weapons and the blessing of Yuuzhan. We will see whose faith is stronger. The transmission cut off, and Anakin turned to his bridge crew. Rex, you have command of the fleet. If I don't return, Thrawn will advise you on how to proceed. The mission continues regardless of what happens to me. Sir, you can't seriously be. I am. This is what I was trained for, Rex. Not leading fleets, though I do that when necessary, but facing threats that normal soldiers can't. I am the Emperor's champion. It's time I acted like it. He left the bridge to prepare for the duel that would decide the battle's outcome. Part 13. The shuttle ride to Vong La's worldship was tense and silent. Anakin piloted himself. He had refused any escort, knowing that arriving alone would send a message of absolute confidence. His silver armor gleamed in the cockpit's lighting, the psychic wards inscribed on its surface seeming to pulse with anticipation of the combat ahead. Through the viewport, he could see the organic worldship growing larger. It was a disturbing sight, a vessel that was more creature than ship, its hull composed of living tissue that breathed and flexed. Weapon systems that were actually living organisms protruded from its surface like cancerous growths. The entire thing radiated wrongness through the Force, a life form so twisted from natural evolution that it existed in a state of constant suffering. The Vong had no presence in the Force. That was one of the most disturbing aspects of their species. Where other beings created ripples in the cosmic energy field, the Vong existed as voids, absences that made Force-based combat techniques unpredictable. But Anakin wasn't relying solely on the Force for this duel. The shuttle landed in what served as a hangar bay, though hangar was too mechanical a term for the space. It was more like entering the stomach of some vast beast, the walls lined with tissue that pulsed rhythmically. Vong warriors stood in formation, their scarred faces showing contempt mixed with grudging respect for an enemy who would enter their holy vessel alone. Anakin descended from the shuttle, his enhanced senses taking in everything. The air smelled wrong, organic decay mixed with something that burned the nostrils. The temperature was warmer than standard, matching what he assumed was the optimal environment for the living ship. The gravity felt slightly off, probably generated by more of those Dovan basal creatures rather than mechanical systems. A Vong warrior stepped forward, his armor made from some kind of crab-like creature that had been molded to fit his body. The Supreme Commander awaits you in the central arena. Follow. Anakin followed, noting how the Vong warriors moved to escort him through corridors that seemed more like intestinal passages than hallways. They walked in silence, the only sounds the breathing of the worldship itself and the distant screams of creatures that existed only to serve as the vessel's systems. The central arena was a vast open space at the heart of the worldship. Bleacher-like structures of organic material surrounded a cleared fighting area, filled with thousands of Vong warriors who had gathered to witness their supreme commander destroy the infidel champion. Their scarred faces showed eager anticipation for the bloodshed to come. And there, in the center of the arena, stood Vong La. Up close, the Vong commander was even more imposing than his holographic image had suggested. He stood nearly as tall as Anakin's enhanced height, his body covered in ritual scarification that mapped his achievements. His left arm had been replaced with a creature called a Raydank claw, a living weapon that could extend and retract, its edges sharp enough to cut through metal. His other hand held an amphistaff, a serpentine creature that could become rigid as a spear or flexible as a whip, and whose tail secreted venom that killed in seconds. "You came," Vong La spoke, his voice carrying across the arena. "I admit, I expected treachery. Your kind relies on deception, and your kind relies on assumptions," Anakin replied, stepping into the fighting circle. "Perhaps if you spent less time scarring your faces and more time understanding your enemies, you wouldn't keep losing to them." Rage flashed across Vong La's features, but he controlled it. "Words will not save you, infidel. In this arena, only strength matters. And when I cut you apart, piece by piece, your screams will tell the truth your words attempt to hide." Anakin settled into a combat stance, his enhanced muscles coiling with potential energy. He had left his lightsaber aboard the shuttle. This duel would be fought with his body and the Force alone, as per the Vong's terms. But his body was a weapon in itself now, enhanced to transhuman standards, and the Force. The Force was power beyond anything the Vong could comprehend. "Whenever you're ready," Anakin said calmly. Vong La attacked with shocking speed. His amphistaff shot forward like a striking snake, its poisoned tip aimed at Anakin's throat. Anakin pivoted, the strike missing by millimeters, and launched his own counter, a devastating punch that would have shattered a normal human's ribcage. The Vong's crab armor absorbed the impact, but Vong La still grunted from the Force behind it. His eyes widened slightly. He had expected strength, but not this much strength. Enhanced flesh, The Supreme Commander spat. Abomination, evolution, Anakin corrected. Something your species rejected in favor of religious stagnation. Their fight began in earnest. Part 14. The duel was unlike anything Anakin had experienced, including his battle against Sidious. The Sith Lord had been dangerous, yes, but Sidious operated within the framework of the Force that Anakin understood. Vong was something else entirely, a void in the Force that attacked with weapons that were alive and adaptive. The Amphistaff changed tactics constantly, becoming rigid for piercing strikes, then suddenly flexible for sweeping attacks. Its venomed tip left sizzling trails in the air, and Anakin knew that even a scratch from it would begin killing him immediately. The redank claw on Vong's other arm extended and retracted with mechanical precision, slashing at openings faster than normal human reflexes could track. But Anakin's reflexes were far from normal. He moved with the enhanced speed that his transhuman physiology allowed, dodging strikes that would have killed him if they connected. His armor absorbed, glancing blows that still hit with enough force to stagger him. The psychic wards flared with protective energy when the Amphistaff got too close, the inscribed symbols the Emperor had carved into the metal deflecting the living weapon's more exotic attacks. They exchanged a flurry of strikes that left both combatants breathing hard. Vong had landed several hits, his armor showed the marks, but none had penetrated to vulnerable flesh. Anakin had landed equally devastating blows, each one backed by strength that exceeded anything the Vong had fought before. "You are strong," Vong admitted, circling his opponent with predatory grace. "Perhaps the strongest infidel I have faced, but strength alone will not save you. Tell me, where are your false powers? I was told you could move objects with your mind, that you wielded lightning like the gods themselves. Show me these abilities, if they are real." "They're real," Anakin replied, "but I don't need them to defeat you. Killing you with my bare hands will send a stronger message. Arrogance. It will be your death." Vong launched into another assault, this one more aggressive than before. He was committing fully now, accepting damage to deal damage. His Amphistaff coiled around Anakin's blocking arm, while his redank claw slashed at the exposed gap near Anakin's neck. Anakin felt the claw's edge bite into his skin, drawing first blood. The wound wasn't deep, his enhanced physiology had made even his skin more resistant, but the Vong warriors watching roared their approval at seeing their champion score. The Amphistaff tightened around Anakin's arm, its constriction powerful enough to crack normal bone. Anakin's reinforced skeletal structure held, but the pressure was immense. He could feel the creature's primitive mind screaming hatred at him through whatever limited consciousness it possessed. He responded by channeling force energy through his trapped arm. Golden light erupted from Anakin's limb, not as lightning but as pure force judgment, the righteous power the Emperor had taught him to wield. It burned into the Amphistaff, not killing it but causing it such agony that it released its grip and recoiled toward its master. Vong stumbled backward, shocked by what he had just witnessed. His living weapon was traumatized, writhing in his grip as it tried to process pain that shouldn't have been possible. "Your creature felt what it deserved for its twisted existence," Anakin explained, pressing his advantage. "The Force judges all living things, even those so corrupted as your bioweapons. They exist in pain, created for suffering. I simply showed it the truth of its existence." "Blasphemy!" Vong screamed, his control finally breaking. "The gods shaped these creatures. They are sacred. You will pay for this desecration." The Vong commander attacked with renewed fury, but his anger made him sloppy. His strikes, while powerful, became predictable. His coordination with his living weapons suffered as the Amphistaff continued to shudder from its force-induced trauma. Anakin exploited every mistake. He landed a devastating kick to Vong's knee, the force of the blow strong enough to crack even Vong-enhanced joint structure. He followed with an elbow strike to the head that would have killed a normal human instantly. The Vong's thick skull saved him from immediate death, but the impact clearly dazed him. The Supreme Commander fell to one knee, his Amphistaff dropping from nerveless fingers. Blood, dark and viscous, streamed from wounds on his face and body. His redank claw twitched erratically, its biological control systems damaged by the beating it had taken. Anakin stood over him, barely winded despite the grueling fight. His enhanced physiology had been pushed, yes, but he had reserves that the Vong had already exhausted. "Yield," Anakin commanded. "Your skills are impressive, but this fight is over. Yield, withdraw your forces as promised, and you live to fight another day." Vong looked up at him with eyes burning with hatred and shame. To be defeated by an infidel, in front of his warriors. After invoking the god's blessing, it was the ultimate humiliation. "A true Vong does not yield," he snarled. "Death is preferable to dishonor. Then choose life and find new honor in keeping your word. Your warriors are watching. They saw a battle fought with skill and strength. There is no shame in losing to a superior opponent. The shame comes from refusing to learn from defeat." The crowd of Vong warriors was silent, waiting to see how their supreme commander would respond. This was a pivotal moment in their cultural understanding, their greatest warrior defeated by an enemy who offered mercy rather than demanding submission. Vong La's internal struggle was visible on his scarred face. Finally, slowly, he rose to his feet. His posture was pained but dignified. "You have defeated me in combat, Anakin Skywalker. By the terms of our challenge, my forces will withdraw. But know this, the Yuuzhan Vong have long memories. We will meet again. And next time, the gods will favor their chosen." "I look forward to it," Anakin replied. "Perhaps by then you'll have learned that your gods favor those who adapt, not those who cling to tradition while the universe changes around them." The Supreme Commander turned to his warriors, his voice carrying across the arena despite his injuries. "We withdraw. The infidel has proven himself worthy of respect, if not conversion. Honor our bargain, as the gods demand of those who speak oaths." It was a masterful way of framing the retreat, not as defeat, but as honoring a sacred oath. The Vong warriors, while disappointed, accepted this interpretation. They began evacuating the arena, preparing for the withdrawal that their commander had ordered. Anakin watched them go, feeling the weight of what had just happened. He had defeated the Yuuzhan Vong's supreme commander in single combat, secured their withdrawal, and potentially changed their perception of the Galactic Alliance. Not through overwhelming military force or technological superiority, but through demonstrating the strength that came from the Emperor's training. It was, he reflected, exactly the kind of victory that had purpose beyond mere survival. Part 15. The Yuuzhan Vong withdrawal was orderly, their religious devotion to honor ensuring they kept their word despite the humiliation of defeat. Anakin watched from the indomitable Will's Bridge, the ship battered but still functional as the organic fleet gathered their forces and prepared to leave Chiss space. Vong broadcast one final message before departing. "We go, Anakin Skywalker, but we do not forget. The Yuuzhan Vong remember all debts, whether owed to us or by us. You have earned our respect through strength of arm, but respect and enmity are not mutually exclusive. When next we meet, it will be with greater numbers and no offers of single combat. Prepare yourself and your people." It was a threat and a warning combined, but Anakin accepted it for what it was, an enemy acknowledging his capabilities while promising to return with overwhelming force. The Vong would learn from this defeat, adapt their tactics, and return stronger. But so would the Alliance. As the last Vong vessel disappeared into dark space, the combined Chiss Alliance fleet allowed themselves a moment of celebration. Anakin could feel the relief radiating from his crew. They had faced an enemy feared throughout the unknown regions and emerged victorious. Thrawn's holographic image appeared on the bridge. "Congratulations, Lord Commander. Your victory over Vong will echo through Vong culture for generations. You have fundamentally altered their perception of our combined forces." "At what cost, though?" Anakin asked, reviewing the casualty reports now streaming in. "We lost 300 Proto-Space Marines in the boarding actions, dozens of ships damaged, several destroyed. And this was just a revenge raid, not the main invasion force." "True. But consider what we gained. Proof that the Vong can be defeated, understanding of their tactics that will inform future engagements, and most importantly, time. They will not launch another attack soon, not after losing their supreme commander in single combat. They need to process this defeat, adapt their strategy, and rebuild their forces. We have perhaps years before they return in force. Years to prepare. Exactly. And with the intelligence we've gathered, those preparations will be far more effective than anything we could have managed previously. Anakin nodded, seeing the strategic value even as he felt the weight of lives lost. 300 enhanced warriors, brothers who had undergone the painful transformation process, who had believed in the mission enough to volunteer for what might be a suicidal expedition. Their sacrifice had meaning, but that didn't make their deaths any easier to accept. "Begin recovery operations for our fallen," he ordered. "Full honors for every one of them, and compile detailed reports on everything we learned. Vong tactics, their biological weapons vulnerabilities, everything. That information needs to reach the Emperor and the Alliance High Command immediately." "Aye, Lord Commander." As the bridge crew moved to execute his orders, Anakin allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He had proven himself in ways that went beyond his victory over Sidious. That had been a battle against dark side corruption, a test of his incorruptibility. This had been a test of his leadership, his tactical judgment, his ability to face an enemy that didn't play by Force rules. He had passed, but just barely. The expedition would continue, but with new understanding of the threats lurking in the unknown regions, the Yuuzhan Vong were just one danger among many. Who knew what else awaited them in the uncharted spaces between stars? Part 16. In the weeks following the Vong defeat, Anakin threw himself into the work of consolidating their gains. The alliance with the Chiss ascendancy had been forged in battle, the strongest bond possible between warrior cultures. Thrawn proved instrumental in leveraging that bond into concrete strategic advantages. "The ruling families are impressed," Thrawn reported during one of their planning sessions. "Your victory over Tsavong La has convinced even the most isolationist among them that cooperation with outside forces can be beneficial. They've authorized me to share complete Chiss star charts of the unknown regions with your expedition. The data was invaluable. Centuries of careful Chiss mapping revealed hyperspace routes, inhabited systems, potential threats, and resource-rich worlds that would have taken the Alliance decades to discover independently." Anakin's mission suddenly became far more feasible with access to this information. "This will accelerate our timeline significantly," Anakin observed, studying the holographic charts. "We can establish a network of forward bases following these routes, creating a defensive perimeter that gives us early warning of any approach from the galactic rim. That is the intention. The Chiss benefit from having Alliance military presence, creating buffer zones between us and known threats. You benefit from our intelligence and strategic positioning, a true symbiotic relationship." They spent hours planning the next phase of the expedition. Anakin would take the First Legion deeper into the unknown regions, following Chiss-mapped routes to establish bases at critical junctions. Each base would serve multiple purposes: defensive installation, communication relay, and staging point for further expansion. The Proto-Space Marines, blooded in combat against the Vong, approached this new mission with confidence born from victory. Rex, Cody, and Wolf had proven themselves exceptional commanders, their enhanced minds grasping tactical complexities that would have overwhelmed baseline humans. "The men are ready for the next phase," Rex reported during a command briefing. "Morale is high after the Vong engagement. They understand now that the training, the enhancements, the sacrifice, it all had purpose. We faced the galaxy's most feared warriors and won. We won one battle," Anakin corrected gently. "The Vong will return, stronger and more numerous. We need to use this time to prepare defenses that will stop not a revenge raid, but a full invasion force. Millions of warriors, thousands of world ships, attacks coming from multiple vectors simultaneously. Then we'd better get busy, sir." They did. Over the following months, the First Legion expanded through the unknown regions with methodical efficiency. Base after base was established, each one a fortress designed to withstand assault from any direction. Communication relays linked them back to Chiss space, and, through that connection, to the greater Galactic Alliance. Anakin sent regular reports to the Emperor, detailing their progress and findings. The God Emperor's responses were typically brief but encouraging. "Your work serves the greater purpose. The unknown regions must be secured before any external threat can approach the galactic core. Continue mapping, continue fortifying, continue preparing, The Imperium's future depends on such vigilance. The word Imperium caught Anakin's attention. The Emperor rarely used that term when referring to the Galactic Alliance, preferring the local designation. Was he already thinking of transforming the Alliance into something closer to his original vision? An Imperium that truly reflected his philosophy of absolute authority and service to humanity's survival. Anakin filed those thoughts away for later contemplation. For now, his focus remained on the immediate mission. Part 17. 1 year after the Vong defeat, Anakin received an unexpected communication. Not from the Emperor or Alliance Command, but from Vong himself. The message was brief. Anakin Skywalker, I have thought much on our combat. You spoke of learning from defeat. I wish to understand more. I request a meeting. Not for battle, but for exchange of understanding. If you have courage for such unconventional warfare, meet me at these coordinates. Come alone. I will do the same. It was suspicious on its surface, a trap perhaps, designed to lure Anakin into vulnerable position. But his Force senses told him something else. When he meditated on the message, reaching out through the cosmic energy field to touch whatever fragments of Vong La's intention lingered in the communication, he felt genuine curiosity rather than malice. The Vong commander had been changed by their encounter. This could be valuable intelligence, Thrawn observed when Anakin shared the message with him. Understanding Vong psychology at this level could provide advantages in future engagements. However, the risk is substantial. All valuable intelligence comes with risk, Anakin replied. And you taught me that understanding an enemy's art reveals their nature. What better way to understand the Vong than having one of their commanders explain their culture directly? You've already decided to go. I have. But I'll take precautions. You'll know my position. And if I don't return within 12 hours, you'll know it was a trap. The expedition continues regardless. The meeting point was a barren world at the edge of mapped space-neutral territory where neither side held advantage. Anakin arrived in his shuttle, sensors detecting a single Vong vessel already present. True to his word, Vong had come alone. They met on the planet's surface, two warriors who had nearly killed each other now facing each other with weapons holstered. Vong looked different. His scarring was the same, but his bearing had changed. Less aggressive, more contemplative. You came, the Vong said. I was not certain you would. Your message contained genuine curiosity, not threat. I respected that. You could sense this? Through your Force, I could sense your intention, yes. Though you don't exist within the Force the way other beings do. Your thoughts and intentions create ripples that I can perceive. Vong absorbed this information, then gestured toward a rock formation that would provide seating. Come, we will talk. I have questions that have haunted me since our battle. They sat. Two enemies become something else, not friends, but opponents who respected each other enough for honest dialogue. After our combat, Vong began, I returned to my people broken in body and spirit. I had lost to an infidel. By our traditions, I should have sought redemption through death, allowing myself to fall in battle to restore honor. But I could not stop thinking about your words. You spoke of learning from defeat. This concept is foreign to Yuuzhan Vong culture. Why? Surely even the Vong lose battles occasionally. When we lose, we see it as the gods' punishment for insufficient faith. We do not analyze our failures for tactical lessons. We sacrifice more, pray harder, mutilate ourselves further to earn divine favor. You suggested something different, that defeat itself contains wisdom that victory cannot teach. Anakin considered his response carefully. This was more than just exchanging information. This was potentially influencing Vong culture through their Supreme Commander's crisis of faith. Every failure contains lessons, he said finally. When I was younger, before my training with the Emperor, I failed constantly. I was arrogant, impulsive, controlled by my emotions rather than controlling them. Each failure taught me something about myself, about my limitations, about what I needed to change to become stronger. But your gods, this Emperor you serve, he does not punish you for failure. The Emperor isn't a god, despite what some believe. He's a being of immense power and wisdom, but he's pragmatic, not divine. He taught me that failure is inevitable for anyone who takes risks, and that the only true failure is refusing to learn from defeat. Vong La was silent for long moments, processing this radically different philosophy. Finally, he spoke. I have been Supreme Commander because I have won battles. I rose through ranks by defeating enemies and honoring the gods through combat. Now, having lost to you, I question everything I believed. If the gods favored me, why did they let me lose? If they favor the Yuuzhan Vong, why did they allow an infidel to defeat their champion? Maybe your gods aren't what you think they are, Anakin suggested gently. Or maybe they're testing you, forcing you to question assumptions that have held your people back. The Yuuzhan Vong have incredible strength, remarkable technology in your own way, unmatched dedication. But you cling to traditions that prevent you from adapting. In a universe that's constantly changing, inability to adapt is fatal. You suggest we should become like you? Abandon our faith? I suggest you should evolve your faith to encompass new understanding. Keep what makes you strong, your discipline, your courage, your dedication. But be willing to modify what makes you vulnerable, your rigidity, your assumption that all non-Vong ways are inferior, your equation of change with heresy. The conversation continued for hours, two warriors exploring philosophy and faith across the gulf of their cultures. Vong La asked about the Force, about the Emperor's teachings, about how the Alliance had unified former enemies. Anakin explained concepts of purpose over power, of discipline over fanaticism, of strength tempered by wisdom. By the time they parted, something had shifted in the Vong commander. Anakin could sense it, a crack in the certainty that had defined Vong La's entire existence. Whether that crack would lead to positive change or catastrophic collapse for the warrior remained to be seen. I will think on these things, Vong La said as they prepared to leave. You have given me much to contemplate. Perhaps the gods sent you not as an enemy to destroy, but as a teacher to challenge. I do not know. But I do know that the Yuuzhan Vong who return to your galaxy will be different because of this conversation. Whether better prepared to defeat you or better prepared to understand you, even I cannot say. Then we both gained something from this meeting, Anakin replied. Thank you for having the courage to seek understanding rather than simply demanding another battle. There will still be battle, Skywalker. Our peoples are too different, our goals too opposed, but perhaps the battle need not end in genocide for either side. That possibility exists now where it did not before. It was more than Anakin had hoped for. A Vong Supreme Commander questioning his people's fundamental assumptions, considering alternatives to total war. It wouldn't stop the invasion when it came, but it might influence how that invasion was conducted. As he flew back toward Alliance space, Anakin composed his report to the Emperor. This intelligence, the psychological evolution of a key Vong commander, might prove more valuable than any tactical data about their military capabilities. Part 18. 3 years after departing Coruscant, Anakin Skywalker brought the First Legion home. The expedition had accomplished everything the Emperor had commanded, and more. The unknown regions were mapped, with detailed charts now available to Alliance military planners. A network of forward bases stretched through previously uncharted space, each one a fortress that would provide early warning of any external threat. The alliance with the Chiss ascendancy had matured into a true partnership, with joint military exercises and shared intelligence becoming routine. Most importantly, the Yuuzhan Vong threat had been assessed, engaged, and partially neutralized. Vong La's revenge raid had been defeated, and subsequent intelligence suggested that the Supreme Commander's philosophical crisis was spreading through Vong warrior culture. Not all accepted his new thinking. Many viewed him as a heretic corrupted by infidel ideas, but the seeds of change had been planted. The indomitable will led the fleet back into known space, her battle scars now badges of honor that told the story of what the First Legion had accomplished. Behind her came the other vessels, bearing soldiers who had been tested against the galaxy's most fearsome threats and emerged victorious. As Coruscant's familiar skyline filled the viewports, Anakin felt emotions he had learned to channel rather than suppress. Pride in his soldiers' accomplishments, relief at returning to his family, concern about the threats still lurking in the darkness between stars, anticipation for the debriefing with the Emperor, where all they had learned would be shared and evaluated. Lord Commander, Rex's voice came from beside him. Permission to speak freely? Always, Rex. What's on your mind? Just thinking about what we've become, sir. When we left 3 years ago, we were an experimental unit, enhanced soldiers leading an expedition into unknown space. Now we're veterans who faced the Vong and won. We've forged alliances, established territory, and proven that the Emperor's vision for transhuman warriors actually works. That's significant. It is. You and your brothers have exceeded every expectation. The Proto-Space Marine program isn't experimental anymore. It's proven. The First Legion will become the template for future units, spreading throughout the Alliance military. What you've helped build here will protect humanity for generations. Rex straightened with pride that was well-earned. Thank you, sir. The brothers will be honored to hear that. The fleet docked at Coruscant's orbital facilities, and Anakin was immediately swept into the bureaucracy of return. Debriefings, medical evaluations, equipment inventories, the mundane necessities of military operations that couldn't be ignored even after years of combat and exploration. But finally, he was summoned to what he had been anticipating, a private audience with the Emperor. The throne room hadn't changed in 3 years, still the vast chamber of gold and marble, still radiating the presence of a being whose power dwarfed anything else in the galaxy. Anakin knelt before the throne, his silver armor now bearing marks and modifications that told the story of his experiences. Rise, Lord Commander, the Emperor commanded. You have done well, better than even my predictions suggested. I had excellent training, Master, Anakin replied, standing tall. Everything I accomplished was built on the foundation you provided. Modest, but accurate. Your reports have been thorough. The Chiss Alliance alone justifies the entire expedition. But I am most interested in your assessment of the Yuuzhan Vong threat now that you have faced them directly. Anakin organized his thoughts before responding. They're everything, your warning suggested. Fearsome warriors with technology we still don't fully understand. Their immunity to the Force makes them uniquely dangerous. Their religious fanaticism makes them relentless. But they're not invincible, Master. They have weaknesses we can exploit. Elaborate. Their rigidity is their greatest vulnerability. They're so devoted to their traditions that they struggle to adapt when faced with tactics outside their expectations. Their cultural emphasis on honor can be used against them. Vong La honored our dual agreement despite his defeat because his religion demanded it. And most importantly, they're not monolithic. The Supreme Commander is questioning his people's fundamental assumptions because of our engagement. That kind of internal discord could prove decisive in future conflicts. The Emperor listened with intense interest, his golden eyes gleaming with calculation. You did not merely defeat them militarily. You attacked their ideology itself. Impressive. I learned from your teachings about purpose and power, Master. The Vong have power, but their purpose is flawed. By challenging that purpose, I may have done more damage to their invasion plans than any military victory could achieve. Perhaps. Or perhaps you have made them more dangerous by forcing them to evolve. Only time will tell. But you have provided the Alliance with something invaluable. Time and intelligence. We now have years to prepare rather than being caught unprepared when their main fleet arrives. The forward bases you established will give us early warning. The Chiss Alliance provides strategic depth. The tactical data you gathered will inform our defensive preparations. Well done. The praise from the Emperor, rarely given, always earned, filled Anakin with satisfaction that transcended personal pride. He had served his purpose, protected his people, and advanced humanity's position in a hostile universe. There is one more matter, the Emperor continued. Your family. I promised you would return to them, and I keep my promises. Go to your wife and children, Lord Commander. You have earned rest. But know that this is merely a respite, not a conclusion. The threats remain, and you will be called upon again. I understand, Master. I serve at your command. No, you serve purpose, and through that service, you also serve me. There is a difference, and it is what makes you valuable. Now go. Senator Amidala has been patient long enough. Anakin bowed and departed, his heart racing with anticipation he hadn't allowed himself to feel until this moment. 3 years away from Padme, from Luke and Leia. 3 years of missing their growth, their first words, their childhood moments that could never be recaptured. But he had done what was necessary. He had secured their future by helping secure the galaxy's future. That sacrifice had meaning, purpose beyond personal desire. When he finally reached their apartment unchanged in 3 years, kept exactly as he remembered, Padme was waiting at the door. She had aged slightly, worry lines that hadn't been there before marking her beautiful face. But her eyes lit up when she saw him, and she ran into his arms with abandon that defied her usually composed nature. "You're home," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're really home." "I'm home," he confirmed, holding her with strength that had grown but gentleness that remained unchanged. "And I have so much to tell you. But first, where are Luke and Leia?" "Napping. They've grown so much, Anakin. They're 5 now. They ask about you constantly, looking at your holo images, pretending to fight battles like their father. They're going to be so excited." They woke the twins together, and Anakin met his children properly for the first time since they were toddlers. Luke had his father's sandy hair and intense eyes, already showing signs of the Force potential the Emperor had identified. Leia had her mother's dark hair and determined expression, equally strong in the Force but channeling it differently, more diplomatic, more calculating. "Daddy!" they screamed in unison, launching themselves at him with the abandon of children who had only known their father through stories and images. Anakin caught them both, his enhanced strength allowing him to lift them effortlessly while they clung to his neck. "My little ones," he murmured, feeling emotions he had learned to channel rather than suppress. "I've missed you so much." "Did you fight the scary aliens, Daddy?" Luke asked excitedly. "The ones Mommy told us about?" "I did. And I won. So they'll think twice before threatening our galaxy again." "I knew you'd win," Leia declared with absolute confidence. "You're the strongest." Anakin looked at Padme over their heads, sharing a moment of pure joy that transcended all the darkness they had faced. This moment of family reunion, of love that had survived separation and sacrifice, this was what he had fought for. This was the purpose that gave his power meaning. Later that night, after the twins had been put to bed full of stories about their father's adventures, edited for age appropriateness, Anakin and Padme sat together on their balcony overlooking Coruscant. "The Emperor wants you to go back eventually, doesn't he?" Padme asked quietly. "This isn't permanent." "No," Anakin admitted. "The Yuuzhan Vong will return. Other threats will emerge. The unknown regions still need protection. But for now, I'm here. And I intend to be present for our children in ways I couldn't be before. Even though the Emperor has plans for them too? Luke and Leia are strong in the Force, Anakin. He sees them as future Grey Knights, more warriors for his purposes. They'll have a choice, Padme. Unlike me, who was forged out of necessity to prevent a dark future, they'll be able to choose their path. I'll teach them what the Emperor taught me about purpose, about power, about using strength wisely. But I'll also teach them what you've taught me about compassion, about questioning authority, about maintaining humanity in the face of absolute power. They'll be better than me, because they'll have both perspectives. Padme leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. I hope you're right. I hope the future you've helped secure is worth the cost we've paid. It will be, Anakin assured her. Because we'll make it so. Not just me, but you, and Luke, and Leia, and everyone who believes that humanity deserves to survive and thrive. That's what I learned out there in the unknown regions, Padme. It's not about one person's power or vision. It's about collective purpose. The Emperor provides direction, but we provide the heart. Without both, none of this works. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights of Coruscant stretch to the horizon. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars they could see, the Yuuzhan Vong were regrouping, planning their next move. Somewhere in the unknown regions, the forward bases Anakin had established stood vigilant. Somewhere in Chiss space, Thrawn was likely analyzing tactical scenarios for future cooperation. And here, on this balcony, a family was reunited, their love strengthened by sacrifice rather than broken by it. The crusade into the unknown regions had been a success. The first Grey Knight had proven himself not just as warrior, but as leader, diplomat, and strategist. The foundation for humanity's defense against external threats had been laid. But Anakin knew this was merely one chapter in a much larger story. The Emperor had plans that spanned millennia. The Yuuzhan Vong would return. New threats would emerge from the darkness between stars. The galaxy's future remained uncertain, balanced on the edge between survival and extinction. For now, though, he would rest. He would be a husband and father. He would teach his children what he had learned. And when the next call to duty came, and it would come, he would answer it with the same purpose that had carried him through the unknown regions. Because that was what it meant to be the Emperor's champion, the first Grey Knight, the Lord Commander of the First Legion. That was what it meant to have purpose beyond self. And in the end, purpose was everything. The end.